Hey, this is Meridith Elliott Powell, and welcome to another episode of Sales Logic. That's right, it is Saturday morning and it is time to talk sales. I am here with my co host, Mark Hunter. Hey, Mark.
Hey, good morning, and let's make it a great show. We got little technical difficulties in the background, but who cares? We're going to make it happen.
Well, I could have some too. I am coming to you this morning from Atlanta, and let me just say, the internet is not the greatest at this hotel. But I'm going to give you a quick overview of how this show works. Most of you probably know the whole rigmarole as you are with us every single weekend. But we start off every show with a question from our listeners. That's right. If you want to ask a question, if we want us to solve your sales problems, all you got to do is go to our website, saleslogicpodcast.com, or just put a question out there on social media and hashtag it Sales Logic. We've got a topic every week, a book we recommend, and we close every show out with a lightning round because we want you to get return on investment for giving us just a little bit of your time on a Saturday morning. So what's on topic for this week, Mark?
Well, on topic today is negotiation. The topic is best practices for negotiating a successful outcome. We've got a great question that has come in. We've got a book we're going to talk about, and we've got a lightning round where we're going to blast out how do you walk away from a bad negotiation. But hey, why don't we rewind? Let's come back up. Let's deal with the question. The question comes from Michael in Germany. He wrote, I just started with a new company, and they rely too much on low price, which results in having cheap customers and cheap commissions for him. How can I change that?
Wow, that is such a great question. Well, number one is I would assume that the company has not really given you a good bullseye. They've not backed up and really defined who could buy the product and would be willing to pay for the product. More often than not, and I'm guessing Mark's probably going to agree with this too, when people are competing on price, they're focused on the type of customer that doesn't value the product. So your first step is to back up and figure out who the product is really suited for, who could really benefit from the problem. And you probably need to narrow your scope of who you're calling on.
You know, that is said so well. Now, Michael, you are in Germany. You're not going to understand this, but a line I love to use is you can't take a Walmart shopper and make them a Nordstrom customer. So guess what? You're going after the wrong customer. Nordstrom is a high-end department store here in the U.S. Walmart, of course, is Walmart. Nothing against either one of them.
Right.
But here's the whole deal. You have to be going for who you're going for. In other words, know your audience and stay in that lane. Cheap customers will come on cheap prices and will leave you. In other words, if you're attracting a customer on low price, they're going to leave you on a low price. So what's this? The recommendation I have for you, Michael, is very simple. This, you have to create the value proposition first. And I'd venture to say that the company is leading with price too quickly. They're encouraging their salespeople. And if you want to increase your commissions, you got to back away from that strategy, create the value, create the need first before you even begin to think about putting price on the table.
Yeah, I would. I want to piggyback on that too. Is that number one? You may have some of the right customers that you're calling on. You're just selling the wrong thing. More often than not, when you're losing on price, it's because price is all that you are selling. It is not your customer's job to understand what your product or service or what you could do if they did business with you. Let me give you a quick example. I was working with a couple of dental practices down in Texas, and in fact, I got those two contracts to start working with those dental practices because I had done a speaking engagement to about 600 dentists. Now, 600 dentists, about 598 of them earned about the same thing, 200 to 300,000 a year. I had two dentists in the room who were earning between 600 and 800, and they lived in the most rural parts of Texas. And the only difference was they were selling risk and value. The other dentists were selling fillings and implants. You need to understand people will pay for something that is going to solve their biggest issue. You're probably not solving their biggest issue.
That's spot on. You go for the outcome. Go for the outcome, and it's amazing how much more successful you'll be with price. Now, hey, with that, why don't we shift over and let's deal with the topic, because this is a topic that we can run with for a long time. Best practices for negotiating a successful outcome.
I was really looking forward to this topic because I'm assuming that number one is when it comes to negotiating a successful outcome, before you ever go into the negotiation, you better determine what you want your outcome to be. Begin every negotiation with the end in mind.
And along with that, not only have the end in mind, but know what are the gives and the takes that you're willing to put on the table. Now, what do I mean by this? The gives and the takes consist of those things that you may be able to give up that are of low cost to you, but are seen as of high value to them. This is what's key. This is why the most successful negotiations only occur after a great sales process. In fact, I firmly contend that sell first and negotiate second. Sell first is where you uncover what are the outcomes, what are the needs, what are the real issues that the customer is looking for, and you create trust. The higher the level of trust, the less need there will be for negotiation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think number one is you need to figure out before you go into that negotiation, kind of talking about what Mark was talking about, is what you expect your prospect or customer to want. What are, he talked about the gives, but you need to anticipate what those are, and know that and offer some of those things. I also think for a successful negotiation, you better go in with some room to negotiate. You better not go in with your rock bottom price or your rock bottom offer. You better go in understanding that there probably could be some negotiation about in there, and you better give some wiggle room so you don't give away too much.
That's a key piece. You negotiate to the outcome, not to the price. And that is a mindset. That is a mindset shift that people feel negotiation is always around price.
Yeah.
It does not need to be around price. You negotiate to the outcome, the value that the customer is going to get. That's what they're. And the way you leverage this is you leverage it with time. Time is a really neat tool because I can accelerate because, hey, sure, we can delay this, but the benefits you're going to get, the outcome you're going to get is going to be delayed. So don't you want to accelerate this? There are all kinds of ways that you can position things other than price.
Yeah, that is such a good point. I mean, more often than not, it's about keeping the price and offering more value. But, we're talking about a successful negotiation here. And when you think about a successful negotiation, you need to think about making sure that it is a win-win. That this isn't about you beating your customer or about you getting what you want. It is about negotiating so that everybody feels like they're walking away feeling good about it. And what I want to say about that is that I don't want to take so much away from my customer that they don't feel good about it, because that's not going to be a successful relationship. The other is I don't want to give away so much that I'm going in to service this customer with a bad attitude. We're going to talk more about that when we get to the lightning round and talking about walking away.
Well, that's certainly true because negotiations should not be viewed as a transaction. There's a lot of people out there that view negotiations as a transaction. You and I know, carry a different opinion on this because negotiation is one step. Every sale, well, the only good sale is one that leads to the next sale. And that's what you're looking for in a negotiation, even one that doesn't wind up being completed. It's okay. It's okay. Now, a successful outcome means that the customer is going to be able to achieve their outcomes in a manner that they understand the expectations. And this, again, is one of the challenges about a successful and unsuccessful negotiation. Unsuccessful negotiations are ones where expectations are put on the table that can't be delivered on. And maybe the customer bites and takes them. And what does it do? It leaves a bad taste in their mouth after the fact.
Yeah. I'm also going to say, and a successful negotiation is one where the selling part is done and you're truly negotiating. Like I know I'm going into negotiations because, quite frankly, my customers already agreed to buy the product. We're there. Even if they haven't articulated it, we're there. We're truly just negotiating what the deal is going to look like. And so I would say with that, understand, and again, Mark alluded to this, separate the sale from the negotiation. If you're still trying to sell in the negotiation, you're not in a negotiation yet.
That is so true, because here's the whole thing. Up front in the prospecting phase, the selling phase, is when the relationship is established, trust is created, a level of communication, and this is when you get truth. This is when you get truth. Too many times what happens is we get into a serious negotiation and things just kind of start going sideways. And I have to go back to, and I have to deal on what was said up front. This is where I firmly believe the more information I can uncover up front, the better and more successful negotiation I'll have, and probably less need for a negotiation.
Yeah.
And one other piece I'll have, don't be nervous going into a negotiation. Too many salespeople freak out when they say, oh, I got to negotiate this. I got to negotiate this. No. It's just a conversation. Don't negotiate by way of email. Pick up the phone, have a Zoom meeting, get face to face with them.
Yeah. And also don't need that deal. Don't go into that. Mark talked about being nervous, but also don't go into a negotiation being desperate. I mean, we talked about at the beginning of this that you've got to know what your walk away point is. You've got to know when it's no longer a good deal for you. It's funny, I was about 2 years ago, because it was a live event, I was negotiating with a large insurance company about coming in and doing a program for them. We got everything in line, and then compliance got into it. And the compliance just came back with a list of things they wanted from me. And I just said no, because at this point it was going to be so much work for me that it wasn't worth my time. But the point was, I wasn't desperate at that moment. And I said, I so appreciate, this has been great. I would love to work with you, but I'm not willing to jump through those hoops. Guess what? Compliance ended up not needing everything that they were requesting from me. But my point was, I was so comfortable in my skin at that point because I had other things on the table.
Oh, we could do a whole program around how to deal with compliance departments, but we won't go down that path.
We'll save that for another day.
We will save that for fear of alienating our insurance friends, our financial services, et cetera, et cetera. Here's the whole thing on negotiating, and you ran with it very, very well. We have to realize that we have to feel good about it when we get done. I see too many salespeople, what they do is they negotiate and they wind up giving away the farm. Because what happens is they haven't created the foundation for them to stick with, the foundation, the solid piece, and negotiate from there. What happens is they wind up they just keep sliding down. They give away a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And before you know it, you've negotiated a bad outcome. And ultimately, bad outcome for you is a bad outcome for the customer. Because here's the whole thing. If you negotiate a deal where the price is so low or the terms are so bad for you and your company, you won't be able to fulfill. Right. You won't be able to deliver, and the customer gets harmed.
Yeah, it is not if you don't feel good at the end of negotiation, you're not going to deliver at the level that you need to deliver. But I think one of the most important things that we've said here is, number one, is to know your outcome, so that when it doesn't become a good deal for you, you're ready to let it go. And again, if you're still selling in the middle of a negotiation, you're not at negotiation. It's a very different part of the sales cycle.
Know the difference between the two. And hey, with that, we should probably move into the book. And the book, some of you are probably already thinking about the book. Let me tell you something. The book, and I can't find my copy of it here in my office, so I apologize. It's Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Chris Voss is a retired FBI hostage negotiator, and it is an excellent book. Mary, have you had a chance to read it?
I have not. I've not had a chance to read it. Tell us a little bit about what it's about.
Well, first of all, there's some fascinating stories in there because he was able to deal with a number of very critical hostage situations, and he shares situations in there about how to keep emotions out and why splitting the difference is absolutely the worst case, worst outcome you can have. But you see, what he talks about is really what we've been talking about. That you have to understand what are the needs. What are the needs that the other party is looking for? And when you understand those needs, then you can begin to negotiate. But too many people walk in not knowing those needs. And then as a result, they just start splitting the difference and it keeps going down, 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 down. And nobody winds up with a good deal. Never Split the Difference, Chris Voss. It's a great book, and read it. So
Great.
Hey, should we jump into the lightning round?
Yeah, tell us what's on the lightning round.
Well, the lightning round. How do you walk away from a bad negotiation? Oh, let's turn the tables. How do you walk away from a bad negotiation?
Well, number one is something we already talked about, and that is never go into negotiation needing the sale. Never go into the negotiation saying I'm going to do anything I can to get this deal, because if you do, they are going to smell blood.
That is without a doubt. Be upfront. Know ahead. What are your must-haves? Do not deviate from them.
Yeah. When you see a negotiation, when they start asking for too much, again, be willing to know what you're willing to give them and what you have to get. You need to know what is your break even plus. At what point are you going to be losing money, time, or resources on this deal? You've got to know your rock bottom.
Sometimes the most profitable negotiations you ever have are the ones that you walk away from.
That's so true. Realize that when you go into a negotiation, if they keep trying to pinch you on price, then it's time to walk away from that negotiation, because excuse this language, but years ago when I worked in the medical field, I had a guy that I worked with that said, "Don't go call on those doctors. They're nothing but price wars." And it's always stuck in my brain that if some people are 100% that price is their rock bottom thing, and they keep going back to price, it's time to walk away.
When you do walk away from a negotiation, make sure the other party is clear as to why you're walking away. In other words, you leave it with a clear understanding as to why it's ending.
Yeah, and determine when you walk away that maybe the negotiation isn't dead forever. Maybe now the timing is just wrong, and perhaps you didn't do enough selling on the front end. You didn't add enough value, so that's why the negotiation got stuck.
Always know that the bad negotiation, just as you said, can come back around. You can come back around, different terms, different times, in a different date. So never think forever that just because you're walking away now, that sale will never happen.
And understand that that you have to have the confidence, and you have to understand that sometimes the best decision is to walk away. One of the mistakes I think that we make as professionals and sales professionals is not understanding that giving our time and energy to this client means that we are saying no to other opportunities. So get your mindset right and understand that for the time that I'm spending trying to chase this business, I could be out landing 2 or 3 other clients.
Don't think for a moment that just because you're walking away from a bad negotiation that you lost. No, you won because you did walk away from a bad negotiation.
Yeah. I would say to go back and debrief a negotiation. Maybe you had one conversation with them. Now you're going back into a second. Really do a little bit of an audit on it and see what you're doing that's working well, and maybe where you're missing the mark. If nothing else, even if you lose the negotiation, you've learned from the negotiation. Negotiation is about getting better and better and better at it.
There is no such thing as a final negotiation, because just as you said it, you get better and better. Every party comes back and negotiates again. Never think for a moment that any negotiation you have is in a silo and no comments will ever be shared or given to other people. It does. It spreads. Why don't you share one more? I'll share one more, and then we'll close it down.
Yeah, you need to do some work on confidence and mindset before you ever start negotiating. It is very much an energy piece, and if you're not confident when you go into that negotiation, you're never going to be confident enough to walk away from it. Again, desperation has an odor, and people can smell it miles away. So work on your own confidence and overfill your pipeline so you don't need that deal.
Hold your head high and don't allow your emotions to come into play on that negotiation. And worst thing of all, don't allow your emotions from that negotiation to carry you over to other transactions. So with that, let's go ahead and close it down. Hey, thank you for listening to Sales Logic this week. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. If something we've said has earned you a single dollar, consider telling a friend about our show. It's how we grow to help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meridith Elliott Powell.
Remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical.
We can't thank you all enough for joining us this week. Join us here every Saturday at 9 a.m. We'll be back next week with another show. Please don't forget, if you have a question, just pop it on our website, saleslogicpodcast.com, or put it out there on social media with hashtag SalesLogic. We'll see you next week.